So, in order to have a successful landscape painting, there's something that you need to do right at the beginning. Before you paint those awesome reflections in the water or those beautiful greens in the trees or perfectly portray those soft shapes in the mountains in the distance, you need to do this first. Now, what is this? This is a value map. What is a value map? It's a way to organize your composition in simple value shapes to ensure that your landscape painting will work. I don't start any landscape until I figure this out. In my opinion, it's not even worth trying to paint the landscape unless you figure this out. But the cool thing is, if you figure this out and you know it works here, your chances of having a successful landscape go up dramatically. So how do we figure this out? Like most things, it starts with pencil and paper. So I'm going to show you how I did this actually from a tutorial that I did on Patreon. So I'm going to stop talking about it and just show you. All right, going to be doing a kind of different Patreon video. I mean, I've done this before, I think, with Patreon videos, but that's when I really talk more and teach you more about my process for finding a composition, because I feel like it's probably one of the most, if not like the most important thing to know when it comes to landscapes, because it's the first step. Like, you see a landscape or you have a photo or you're taking photos and you got to know how to arrange things. Like, even taking the photos, I feel like knowing this will help you take better photos. It's so interesting because I feel like I see so many students, the photo reference they're working from, the subject matter is really cool and interesting to paint, but it's not composed correctly, and they're trying to copy it exactly how they see it in the photo, and it's very, very rarely is that going to work out. I know because I had to learn this from trial and error, and I did so many landscapes for years that were painted well, but just never seemed to really click. It's because composition. So I wanted to put this video out this week before next week's video where we actually paint this, just so you know how I got the composition and how you can use this process with your own paintings and your own photos to create your own landscapes. So here's a photo, and I actually did not take this photo. This was taken by my best friend. He was up in, I think this is in Utah or Northern California. He was location scouting for a movie he's filming, and he showed me these photos. I was like, man, I want to paint that. That's really cool. And when I first get a photo, like this is just the photo he sent me, I go, oh, I want to paint this. And a good thing to do is just try and acknowledge what you like about it. What do you want to paint about it? For me, it's definitely, I really like this yellow grass. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's very interesting to me. I like the trees, just like the tall pine trees. I like the river. There's a lot of things I like, but I'm going to have to choose one to most likely emphasize, especially like when it comes to either the ground or just the way you're going to crop it. You either want to have the horizon line up high or down low, most of the time. So when I get a photo like this, the first thing I want to do is just start testing things out pretty much and sketching things out. So if I say, okay, my initial thought is I really like this yellow grass and it's just really interesting. Let me see if I can come up with a way so that takes up the most space in the composition. Sounds, simple and kind of obvious enough, right? So I do that, and what I like to do is I like to just put very fade, like very simple, very faint, just grid-like. This is going to help me with balance. I'll kind of explain that a little. I'll explain it actually right now. So I see, like, I like this. I'm like, all right, how can I make that take up as much space? And I think, okay, what if I just like cropped it like that? Let me see if that will work. So, and don't always rely on cropping. Like, you can change things. And so I think, okay, what if, this river, like this is halfway, like I'm thinking kind of vertically. What if this river takes up more than halfway, which is probably a good thing. See, if I put that there, and then like here's maybe the other bank. Just doing that, I've already made this yellow, like the yellow grass, take up a lot of space. So I have some over here. It's like, okay, that's not too bad, but I mean, I feel like actually the river is taking up more space than the grass. So what if I kind of cheated it and really made it like that. Now look how much space that's taken up. And now when it comes to the trees, since I've identified or anointed the grass is the thing that I want to emphasize in this composition, these trees really have to take a back seat. They are a supporting character. They are not the main character of this. So it's okay if they're very simple. And so they're just going to be just simple shapes. And then you got this hill in the background. And notice right now, I'm very clear with my lines. Because at this beginning stage, I'm really trying to simplify and see the major lines of the scene. And I know this sounds very difficult to like think of. I know when I first started, like, lines of the scene, I've seen lines everywhere. But just by identifying the big shapes like I did, I've broken this scene down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines pretty much, unless I forgot one. 7 or 8 lines. And this is going to help, this can help you identify your focal point. Because where are all these lines leading to? Boom, 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 boom. They're all leading right here, which is good. This is a good place for a focal point. If they're all leading right here in the center, not a great place for a focal point. Just in general, try and get your focal point to be like here, 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 or here. Is that like a absolute hard fast rule? No, I mean, nothing's really a hard fast rule in art, but you're just starting out. You need something to like kind of get your ground, get your footing. You need some constants, I feel like, and that's just one that I like to use. So it's like, okay, I'm liking this. And let me see. Maybe get that, and then that there. So I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. I'm thinking, okay, down here, I like this rock here and just like the shape it can make. And I want something to kind of push us, drive us into the scene. So what if I just have the opening just a little something like that? Now I like that. So my next step here is like, once I say, okay, these are interesting dynamic shapes. And what I mean dynamic is that they're not the same size. Like this shape is a lot taller than this shape or this shape or this shape. Like no two shapes here. You can't point out any two shapes and say, oh, those are pretty similar in size, which is good. Now I want to think about assigning a value to these shapes and constructing a value composition between 3 values: a dark, a midtone, and a light. Now, yes, you can do this with more values. I find the fewer values, more difficult it is, but the more difficult it is, the more proven your composition is, meaning the more chance it's going to work. Like if you can get it to work with 3 values, chances are if you just translate that into your painting's going to work. Now you're probably thinking like, okay, like what constitutes making it work or not? Coming back again to the idea of balance or dynamic balance. So if I have a dark, a midtone, here you go. I wish I lost my little blending stump, so I'm just gonna use my finger. And then a light, 3 values. I want to assign values to here that one makes sense. Like I couldn't assign the lightest value to the trees because I mean they're so dark. Like I might sometimes be able to push the trees to a midtone, but number one has to make sense. And 2, I want a dynamic distribution. I mean, the last thing I want is for this to be like 33%, 33%, 33% each, or 50%, 25, 25. Like I want them all to be very different or as different as I can. So I like to start with darks, and I feel like 90% of the time, your trees are going to be your darkest value. There's something called the planes of a landscape. I actually go over this in my landscape course, but I'm just going to do this quick little demo here. I'm going to put like a little house. So in a landscape, there's 4
value planes, and there are exceptions to what I'm about to say, but in general, you can kind of look for this. One, your sky is going to be your lightest value. Then your second lightest value is going to be your ground. So just going to do that. That's because the ground's flat. So the sun, the light's coming from the sky, and the ground is flat, so it's getting all of that light. Then slanted planes are slightly darker. They're not getting that direct light. If your light's shining straight down and you got a slanted plane, it's not, a flat plane's getting it directly. Slanted, it's like it's not grabbing it as much. So a lot of times mountains will be darker, or hills, just slanted planes will be darker than the ground. And your darkest is going to be upright objects like houses, trees. Because again, the light's coming from above, and an upright object, there's not as much surface area collecting that direct light. So, and this is even true with like the lights of the trees. I always say this. I feel like a lot of times beginners will make the lights in their trees way too light. Whenever you have a photo of some trees, like put it in black and white and see how dark the lights are. And this is like an overcast day, so we're not really getting into that right now. But just knowing this will help me. I'm like, okay, well, I can start here. And don't feel like you got to get things right, right away. Like I keep a book for a reason, and I will just like do tons and tons of trial and error trying to figure out these values. So don't feel like you have to get it perfectly right off the bat. So over here, it's dark. And these rocks are looking pretty dark. But also there's this reflection of the trees here. And so I could actually probably do something like that. And I actually like this because this kind of gave me an extra vertical. Just something to know is that with landscapes, it's a lot harder to find vertical lines opposed to horizontal lines, because you got like the horizon line, and you got like mountains, and it's a little more difficult to find. So anytime you can create one or get one, it's probably good. So this reflection, yeah, you don't see it go directly down like I did. That's because the water's moving, and these ripples are breaking up the flat surface of the water. If the water was perfectly calm and perfectly flat, you get more of the reflection. That's why, because it's calmer along the shoreline, so you're getting more of that reflection. So I'm taking a little artistic license and saying, maybe the river's not as rapidly moving as it really is, just so I can get that, because I like that. And next thing, okay, so now I need, all right, I think this is good for my darks. Now, what about my lights? And what about my focal point? Because remember, I wanted my focal point to be somewhere around here. And I see, these really bright reflections. This is pretty much the brightest thing in the scene. And looking down here, it kind of gets bright again. So I was like, oh, that actually probably fit well into there. So what if I got this shoreline here. What if there was just some of that breaking water right there? And it's good because now that light is sandwiched between darkest darks. Because I always try and make my focal point the one area, if not the most area, sometimes there's a couple areas, where my lightest light and darkest dark touch. Because I can tell you right now, I'm going to definitely make this a midtone. This hill back here a midtone. So I'm going to connect those trees there. So now this area is going to be an area of high contrast, and the eye is going to want to go there. It's a little difficult to see in just such like a little drawing. I mean, not really. And I think that's working pretty well. So now I want to ask myself, when I look at this, is it obvious what value of these is taken up the most? I think it is. It's definitely the mid-tone. This is number one, I'd say. Then you say, like, what's number two? Is it the light or is it the dark? Pretty sure it's dark because, I mean, you got this big, you got that, you got this, and you got this thing over here. This, you just kind of got that shape and a little bit of the sky. So definitely second and third. And the thing is that if that wasn't clear, if it was like, ooh, you know, I can't really tell, there's kind of equal amount dark, equal amount light, maybe I do take a little more artistic license and make that a little more maybe. You know? I don't know if I like that. See, I don't like that because it's just too parallel, too symmetrical. They both come down to the same point. I don't want that, actually. Bring this back. So I think that's working. That seems like an interesting value composition. But let's try a different one. Let's do the opposite. Let's do the trees. It's always good to do multiple ones because you never know. You might think you really like that, and you do another one, you like it even more. So I'm just going to do my same thing here.
I'm going to pop in here for just a second. I know I'm talking a lot about composition. If you want even more information on composition, there's so much more to learn. I actually offer a free composition coaching guide. It's a series of short videos where I break down the main elements of composition in a way that you can understand and implement in your own work. If you want to check that out, there's a link to it in the description of this video.
And don't expect like this process to like, you know, get it right off the bat. Like it took me a while to like get the hang of this, to develop an eye for it, and simplifying in general is never an easy thing. All right, so let's move these trees down here in like the shoreline. Like that's the shoreline. Here, it was all of this. Here, it's just that. A lot different. The other shoreline. And now these trees. Going to be taking up the most. And it's funny because I actually painted both these versions and I put them on Instagram and ran a poll which people liked more. It was funny because I ended up liking that paint more, but people like this more. So this is the one I'll actually end up doing. Spoiler alert, if you didn't know, next week for Patreon tutorial. So that, and now I know about the reflection, so I'm gonna get the wall reflections there. Now I have a decision to make. So I got this hill back here, and realistically, it'd kind of fall right there. But, you know, I don't know. I like the hill. Like, it's cool that it's, you know, rare that you have like a big mountain or hill kind of in the distance. So I'm going to, and also I just find the hill more interesting to paint than the sky. So I'm going to angle this like that. And I purposefully angled it more and angled it this way because we already have like a pretty strong angle with these trees going this way. And whenever you have a really strong angle, you want to try and counter it at some point. So I'm countering it right here. So have that there. So I got all my lines. So I got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. Whole scene, 8 lines, not bad. So let's put some values into here. Now, yes, this is going a lot quicker because I kind of figured out a lot of the value stuff in this one. It's just, you know, cropping it differently pretty much. So Just gonna fill this all in with dark. And I'm gonna actually, kind of keep the focal point the same again. I think in the final painting I put a little person down here, but just gonna have a little water ripple there. Reflection. Now, something to think about if you find yourself like struggling with this being so small, like this is, really small. You're like, "Oh, I can't get detail, like I can't get small enough." That's an indicator that you're thinking too small. Like, look how big these shapes are that I'm thinking about. Like this whole scene, all these shapes, like nothing. Like I'm not like I can't get it. I'm keeping everything pretty big. My eraser is just not cooperating. And this hill's gonna be that. Clean part of the eraser here. Not too bad. Now you've probably seen other artists do this, very similar process. Some will do it with markers, a lot of different grade markers. Some will do it with, different grade paint. But it's all the same idea. You're wanting to simplify the scene and come up with, a composition with these big shapes. Because once you do this, the rest is actually pretty easy. And again, we can check, no shapes are similar in size here. This shape is not similar than this. This is not similar than that. It's just nothing is similar. All the lines lead to the focal point right there.
All right, hope composition and value map make a little more sense now. Now that you've done the composition for this painting, if you want to go ahead and see the tutorial of this painting, you can find it on my Patreon page, and you can actually do a 7-day free trial. So if you want to check that out, there's a link to my Patreon in the description of this video. All right, I'm Chris Fornatero here telling you to go get painting.